Hey gang, Craig Ripley here. Welcome once again to Living Off the Slab. Now today I'm going to talk about something, well, just a little bit different, and that is I'm going to talk about group riding. In particular, we're going to see if we can dispel some of the myths or misconceptions surrounding riding in a group. The reason I'm speaking about this topic today is because this often comes up on some of the forums that I am involved with. Right? I ride cruisers myself, and we do a lot of formation riding. However, in the adventure community or the sport bike community, people typically don't ride in formation. They typically want to ride single file with more space behind them because they're riding a little bit harder, hitting the corners harder, and they want all the space they can to work with. Again, and that is absolutely fine. So that's one point that I want to talk about. The reasons that people are riding in a group. The primary reason that people are going out and riding in groups, at least the groups that I'm involved with, is for the camaraderie. Right? We are riding to be together, to be with your friends, to ride with your friends, to relax and have a good time. It really isn't about going fast, right? It's about enjoying the scenery, enjoying the road, and probably going someplace and having some good food to eat. Now, while groups of riders on other kind of bikes other than cruisers share a lot of those common traits, right? Sometimes they also want to ride a little bit more aggressively. I enjoy riding that way myself, but there are times when you want to ride aggressively and times when you don't. Right? And riding in a big group of people is typically the time that you don't want to do that. Another reason that people enjoy riding in a group is because of safety. Right? They feel safer in a group. And the group is bigger, so it's more easily seen than an individual motorcycle. Now, I know there's a lot of people that say that that's not true. A lot of people say that riding in a group is more dangerous because you're closer together and you're going to run into each other. And while I know that that happens, I know you can Google accidents that happen at charity rides and so forth, but I am not talking about charity rides. I am talking about riding in a group of people that you know well and that are very practiced at doing so, not a bunch of people that you don't know. I've ridden tens of thousands of miles in group rides. I've led them, and I often am the sweep on our group rides. Right? I'm the president of the Massachusetts Bay Victor Riders, and we do 30 or 40 rides every year. Right? And this ride that we're going to show you today was a ride of 13 bikes, and we went about 170 miles on this particular day, and we did it without incident. And we do this all of the time without incidents. Nobody has ever collided with anybody else. It just doesn't happen if you do it properly. So what we ride in is called the staggered position. And most motorcyclists who ride in groups will be familiar with this position. But if you're not, what we do in this formation is that the front rider will start in the left-hand side of the lane, and then the next rider will be in the right-hand side of the lane, about a second back of the first rider. The next rider, again, is in the left-hand side of the lane. Now they are 2 seconds back of the rider in front of them and a second back from the rider beside them. And this just goes on back, staggering all the way through the group. So why do we use this formation? Well, primarily because it compacts the group, gives us the smallest footprint on the road, but also allows us room to maneuver as we need to within the group. And again, this now is one common misconception. Right? People think that just because you are in, quote, formation, it means that you can't move within the group. Everything has to be tight and everything has to be fixed. If there are things in your way, you have to run over them. You can't deviate out of your line. Again, that just absolutely is not true. So while we're on the topic of formations, let me say one more thing. And that is that often in these discussions that I'm reading on these different forums, people will talk about how they use the entire lane and their goal is to keep themselves safe at all times. And I understand that. That is everybody's primary goal, to keep themselves safe, and we definitely stress that on our group rides. However, right, the other thing that you're out there to do, right, is to ride with other people. other friends, right? So your secondary goal, right, very close to the one of keeping you safe, is to help keep everybody else safe. So within the group there needs to be communication, right, and there needs to be some give, right, to allow the other people to keep themselves safe within the group. You don't want to do stupid things, right, that are looking out for yourself that might hurt other people. Alright, so now with all that said, let's take a look at what happens to a group, right, when various conditions on the road changes. Right? And what I did on this particular video is I just went out, again, on this ride with my group. So there were 13 bikes in this particular group, and I just sit in the back and I just filmed. I didn't tell anybody that I was filming. I didn't tell them that they need to do these kind of behaviors or anything. I just sat back there and filmed. Now let's take a look at some conditions that you typically run into out there on the road. The first one is what happens to the group when the road narrows. Now people would typically think, well, you just hold your position and you don't move. Again, that is not the case. The group is not static, right? The group is flexible. It's a living organism all working together. Right, so what happens is as the road narrows, right, the side-to-side distance between the bikes becomes less, right, and the distance fore and aft lengthens, right? And most of the time, again, with a group of people who have been doing this for a while, all of this happens quite naturally. Next, let's look at obstacles in the road. What happens to the group, again, when there are obstacles like potholes or somebody on the side of the road, construction, what have you. Right? Again, the conception is usually that, well, you have to ride through it. You just have to gut it out. Again, not true. And I hope that this video right here, this footage, will show you exactly what happens and the group adapts to the obstacles. Another criticism of group riding is that when you get into the twisties, you can't use the entire road, right? You can't use cornering lines, right? And you are limiting your ability to maneuver, right? And handle the corner, right? And thus, it must be dangerous. Well, again, not true if you're doing it correctly, and let me show you some footage of that. So again here, the group is adapting to the road conditions. Actually what happens is the leader goes into a twisty section, raises their finger and says 1, right? And that means everybody goes to single file because he knows, being a good leader, right, that we need to go into single file to give everybody the room to maneuver. So next let's talk about riding in traffic, because that is one of the times when it is advantageous for the group to stay pretty compact and pretty tight and hold its formation, right? And the reason for that is because the smaller group is able to maneuver through traffic, get through lights and etc. better than a big, long and stretched out group, right? Also, if you leave gaps, cars are going to fill those gaps. I guarantee you, if you leave a car space, somebody's going to come in there. right? And that's what we don't want to happen, because that's dangerous, cars moving in and out of your lane. We want to keep everything nice and tight when we're going through congested areas. Next, let's talk about blocked views, because this is a common criticism of riding in the group, that the other riders in the group block your view of oncoming traffic and so forth. But I have never experienced this. Again, in tens of thousands of miles of riding in groups, I have never experienced this. And why? Because when I'm riding in a group, I don't change the way that I ride my motorcycle, right? When I'm riding by myself, I am scanning everything. I'm scanning the lane coming towards me. I'm scanning over to the right. I am constantly scanning everywhere, looking for potential problems that might crop up. And when I'm riding in a group, I'm doing exactly the same thing. So I still see those oncoming cars in the left-hand lane. I can see them way up the road, probably before they even hit the front of the group. I can see the cars over on the right, again, because I'm scanning and looking, right? I'm not staring at the back of the other bikes. If you are, well, you're not riding properly. So I think you can see in all of this footage that all of these cars are easily seen well ahead of getting to me. I know they're coming, right? Nothing's blocking my view or endangering me. So with all this said, does that mean that everybody who is riding in a group rides perfectly? No, of course not. I don't ride perfectly every time that I go out to ride. Nobody does. And it doesn't matter what formation you're in, whether you're in staggered formation or single file, nobody rides perfectly all of the time. With that said, you do not have to be afraid of riding in groups. They can be extremely safe, and sometimes more safe than riding by yourself. Again, primarily because you have a much larger footprint. You've got 13 lights going down the corner that cars see. Cars register that big group a lot faster than they do the single rider. Now, I can attest to this, that when I'm out riding by myself, right, I'm getting cut out, pulled out in front of all of the time, right? We all have to look out for this stuff all of the time. Right? But when we're riding in the group, this happens much less often. People see the big group and they stop, they wait for us, they let us go. Again, things that never happen when I'm out riding by myself happen to me when we're with a group. And besides that, it's fun to hang out with your friends. So we'll see you next time, and please check out those ways that you can help support this channel. We greatly appreciate it. So thanks for watching, and if you like what you see, please consider supporting this channel. In the description of this video, you'll find several ways in which you can help to support the channel and keep these videos coming. Just pick the ones that make most sense to you. Whatever it is, we greatly appreciate all the help. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.